Oh, can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, your mic's a little
loud. Sorry.
Every
time.
Move it.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. And
okay, my bad.
Over here, and chat should be able to see us. What's up, chat? We'll take this out for now. How you guys doing? Welcome to episode 3 of the Pat's Pulpit Mock Draft Show. I am Ryan Kieran. That is Ryan Spagnoli, and that is Keegan Stiefel. We are going to be switching it up a little bit tonight. We have a just getting a little set up here. We have a 1-round mock draft, just like we've had the past 2 weeks, but this week we're adding in trades. So here's how that's going to work. We are going to pick the order the same way we picked the past couple weeks with the picker wheel, and that assigns us each, a set of teams, and we're going to be responsible for those teams' trades. So if I get the Jaguars and I want to give Trevor Lawrence to the Patriots because I'm just the nicest guy in the world, and Keegan has the Patriots, then I'll say to Keegan, hey, I'm the Jaguars, I'm going to trade down. Or if Keegan wants to trade up, he can say, hey, Ryan, you want to trade up here? I'll say, sure, what are you thinking? And he'll say, I give you 15, you give me 1, straight up, easy deal, let's get it done. And I'll say, all right, sounds good to me. I don't see a problem with that. And then we accept the trade. I'll send it through using the draft network. I pointed my monitors if you guys could see it, which you clearly can't. But we'll send the trade through. We'll make sure it works. We'll game the system if we need to. And then that's how the trades are going to work. So due to the trades and the discussion that's going to happen around them, it's probably going to be a little bit longer tonight, but we got the time. So hopefully we'll send it in. If you guys have any ideas for trades that you'd like to see, send them in the chat. Maybe we'll see if we can make them happen and see how it plays out. So feel free to get that going. We'll get the order going in a couple minutes here. We're going to give some time for people to filter in. But if any of you guys that are already in here have any questions, feel free to send those in right now. And we are live on YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch tonight. So should have a broader audience. So if you're on any of those platforms, feel free to send any comments, and we should be able to get them all. So Keegan, Ryan, how you guys doing tonight?
Good. I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, this is Mr. Techie over there. You set this up pretty quick. I was a little nervous, but you didn't let me down. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool. We're it's the second week doing it, but I mean, pretty cool. You can broadcast to, multiple streaming services. Obviously, Twitter and YouTube and Twitch are huge. So, but yeah, drop in questions if you want. Obviously, me and Keegan have been grinding away, and yep. Ryan has been too. So, I'll be interested to see with the trades because I think there's a bunch of scenarios, right? Starting with the Dolphins at 3, and what does kind of Carolina do, and if the Patriots feel they want to trade up. There'll be certainly some teams ahead of them that will probably be chomping at the bit if say like a Trey Lance or someone like that falls.
Absolutely. And as he says he's been grinding, let me show you guys what they've been grinding on here real quick. So this is their NFL draft prospect spreadsheet. As you can see at the top, Keegan and Ryan and Spags have been working on this. You can see we're at quarterbacks right now. They got sorted out by positions. They've got, prospect, college, size, pros and cons, stats, career stats, what round they take them, and their grades and potential. If they've put up a full-length article here, then you can see it right there. You can see the link, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, for example. And if they've had a visit with the Patriots, you see that right here. So you can see Mac Jones has, Jamie Newman has. Click over to wide receivers, you'll see Jalen Waddle right up here.
Yeah, Keegan, sorry about that. We had Devontae Smith 1 for a little bit, but we had to play around with that after last week's discussion. I think that's
I've moved a couple around too. We'll
okay.
I mean, things are going to be fluid. I feel like, especially with pro days and everything going on soon. So things will change.
Yep.
Once Rashad Bateman runs his 4.5 40 or whatever he said he could run, he might jump up a couple spots.
He said he's going to hit the 4.3s. As long as he's in the 4.4s, he's all set to me.
Everyone's running a 4.3 over Zoom this year, boys.
Right, exactly.
We know that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so that spreadsheet is available on both Ryan Spags and Keegan's Twitter accounts, which is at Keegan Stiefel and at Ryan_Spags, as you can see on the bottom here. Also, if you guys are watching on a platform that's not Twitch, perfectly fine, but do me a favor. Go ahead and head over to Twitch real quick and hit the follow button on the Pat's Pulpit account. We've been streaming exclusively to Twitch the first 2 weeks of this show. We're trying to grow that account. It's brand new. This is the first show that's ever gone live on it. It's going to be a growing platform for us collectively at Pat's Pulpit. So go ahead and head over there, follow us real quick, then come back to watching on YouTube or Periscope, wherever you want to go, or stay on Twitch. But just do us that favor and go ahead and hit that follow button. Doc110723 said most reports are saying 3 comp picks, but the Pats only got 2. Your thoughts? I think this is a good way to get us to starting. Studio Jim replied, the Bo Allen signing was brutal, didn't play, and cost the team a 4th-round comp, which is true. Bo Allen, because he was so expensive, this was a point of confusion that I saw on Twitter a little bit, where Tamir Baird counted in the compensation formula, and so did Bo Allen, but Landon Roberts and Nate Ebner didn't. So the reason that Bo Allen still played a factor is the primary factor in the comp pick formula is salary that they get signed. So Bo Allen signed a 2-year, $7 million deal, $3.5 million per year. Tamir Baird signed 1 year, $1.65 million with incentives to go up to 2.5. Landon Roberts signed 1 year, $2 million, and I don't remember what Nate Ebner signed, but we're going to focus. Nate Ebner doesn't really matter here.
Real quick question here before you go on. How come Ted Karras didn't count? I thought that was a head scratcher too.
Yeah.
Oh, he did.
No,
he started 16 games. So
Yep. Ted Karras counted. So the way the comp pick formula works at a higher level is teams have players that when players leave a team, if they were signed for large enough money, basically, there's other factors still, which we'll get to, but they can factor into the comp pick formula. When teams sign players that factor into the formula, those cancel out. So you cannot have more comp picks than your net lost players. So the Patriots had 5 players lost that counted towards the comp pick formula and 3 players gained towards the comp pick formula. So that's why they only had 2 instead of the expected 3, because it was expected that they would have 6 or even 7 players against the formula, but they only ended up with 5. Now, why that is because Tamir Baird, Landon Roberts, and Nate Ebner's salaries per year were all right on the edge, right around that $2 million mark of qualifying or not, which is where a secondary factor such as snap count comes into play. So Tamir Baird, first of all, hit a portion, not all of his incentives, which brought his yearly salary from 1.6 to 1.9, which brings him more in line with the Landon Roberts $2 million that he made this year. But Tamir Baird played 88% of snaps this year, and Landon Roberts played something like 35% for the Dolphins. So even though Roberts played and made slightly more money than Tamir Baird's larger impact on the team is why Tamir Baird counted against the Patriots, but Landon Roberts didn't count for. Because they were right on that edge.
Too, when you think about it, Tamir Baird cost his 4th-round pick.
Correct.
And because when you looked at it last year, like I guess for his production, considering the circumstances, I'd take that. I think, and who knows what his future is here. Like I'd willingly take him back on a similar deal that what he signed last year. I think that would, people would probably agree with that.
Right. Yeah. And
I mean, without him, those first few weeks of the season, I mean, like before Jacoby really started to step up and kind of take over that Edelman role, you would have been, I mean, those early wins that you got, you don't get, I don't think, without him. So it's
he ended up being the second most productive wide receiver in the worst receiving core in the league. But whether you would trade a 4th-round pick for him or not is arguable. So I'll go back up here for a little bit. But in the long run, that's how it works out. And Tamir Baird, if in a vacuum, would have only cost them a 7th-round pick. You can see my dog going crazy back there. I apologize. Would have only cost them a 7th-round pick against the comp pick formula. But because he has to cancel someone out, there's no meeting in the middle. So say Kyle Van Noy would have probably netted them a 4th-round pick for losing him. But because Tamir Baird comes in and has to be canceled out, it doesn't matter that Tamir Baird would have cost them a 7th or gained where'd he come from? The Panthers, a 7th. And the Patriots would have gained a 4th. It's not like it meets in the middle and that becomes a 6th or something. Those just straight up cancel out. So if you have any, but
so you can't project what he would have gone for. So it's kind of like if you're putting it on the NFL, that they're not going to be like, oh, I don't know, what would he have gone for? You can't really do that. So you've got to kind of stick to the math and the set formula that they have in place.
Exactly.
I mean, and when it comes down to too, is that forfeited 3rd-round pick really hurt him. Right. When you look at their board, and this is off the top of my head, what's it? 15, 46, 96, I believe 110, 120, 121.
Yeah, I think it might be something like that.
So now, I mean, and obviously things can change, right? Because Gilmore's been rumored. You can kind of fill a gap there, but it's similar to what they had last year, where they had such a big gap between 23 and 87. Right. How they like and they value those day 2 picks. Does that kind of change their idea of their board? Are they going to move out of 15, maybe move back? But we'll get into that tonight.
Right.
And maybe that'll be a scenario.
Right. And so Studio Jim also said Danny Shelton signed with Detroit. He also factored in, and Bo Allen watched the Shelton signing out, he thinks. So that's exactly how it works. So we lost Danny Shelton, added Bo Allen, say those cancel out. We lost Kyle Van Noy, added Tamir Baird, those cancel out. We lost Tom Brady. That's why we have the 3rd round pick. We lost Jamie Collins. That's why we have the 4th round pick. So they cancel out from the worst up, which is why signing Tamir Baird didn't cost the Tom Brady 96th overall pick. It cost the lowest of those picks. So if Danny Shelton would have gotten them a 7th and Jamie Collins would have gotten a 4th, Kyle Van Noy a 4th, Tom Brady a 3rd, and I'm spacing on the 5th one. Say whoever the 5th one was would have cost them a 5th. Tamir Baird cancels out the 7th. Bo Allen cancels out the 5th, and again, insert person that we're bringing in that I'm not thinking of right now, cancels out the other 4th, and that's why that all factors in the way that does. So it's a bit unfortunate. Tamir Baird, it was expected that we get the extra 4th, but with how the comp pick formula works, it makes sense. It's a bit unfortunate, but it's not a big deal. But let's get into the overall the night here. So we're going to head over onto the picker wheel. I've taken out the 2 that we've had the past couple weeks, so we can switch it up again. Let's spin it here. All right. I believe this almost gets us into a unique formula. So Keegan picking first overall. I believe you did that last week, Keegan, right?
I did.
And then Spags picking second, which he did week 1. But I have yet to pick third, which means I get to pick for the Patriots, which means I control the Patriots trade.
Which is good because I think all of us now have picked for them in the first 3 weeks. So
yes, that was kind of perfect. So Keegan's going to kick us off with the Trevor Lawrence Memorial pick, then Spags, and I will go. So just a quick reminder of how the trades are going to work out. So Keegan owns the Jaguars now. He will trade – if he wants to trade this pick, that's on him. If he wants to trade it with the Dolphins, who I own, he has to agree to a trade with me. If he wants to trade with the Falcons, who he owns, he's just negotiating with himself. So that's how that's going to work, and so on. And it's just cycling every 3. So Keegan owns the Jaguars, Falcons, Lions, Cowboys, so on, and so on again for each of us. So, Keegan, who are you picking first? As if it's a real question.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence is the pick. He's been the pick for, 2 years now. He'll always be the pick, and if he's not, then we're doing something, extremely wrong.
It's like a what's not going to happen mock draft. Would be the only way
exactly. So unless we want to get really weird in a couple weeks and just kind of do something crazy, but no, we're going Trevor Lawrence first overall pick.
All right, it's easy, and then we're right on to Spag. Oh, sorry, one more thing. We are highlighting linebackers tonight. So the past 2 weeks, week 1, we highlighted quarterbacks. Week 2, we highlighted wide receivers. When those picks are made, we'll stop, get a little more in depth with them, break them down, what we think of them as prospects. For the other positions, we're going to sit here and kind of just talk about team fit. For example, Trevor Lawrence is the best player in the draft, best quarterback in the draft, best quarterback since Andrew Luck and the Jags need a quarterback. So team fit, there you go. When we get to a linebacker, we'll talk more about what we like, what we don't like, how we still talk about that team fit, but it'll be a more in-depth breakdown. And each week we'll rotate that position. So this week's off-ball linebackers. But Spags, you are up with the Jets.
Yeah, I think I had this pick week 1. It's kind of alluding to it. It's either Zack Wilson or Justin Fields here, assuming, the Jets do move on from Sam Darnold. Where does he go? Who knows? Does that open up a deal for Jimmy Garoppolo to come to New England? A lot of dominoes kind of have to fall into effect. But I think when everything kind of falls into place, the Jets will go quarterback here. Obviously, new head coach, trying to build something there. I think it's Justin Fields here, and alluding to my week 1. I think when you draft Zack Wilson, is that really an upgrade over, can kind of do some of the same things that Sam Darnold can. Obviously, you're kind of resetting that clock on a rookie quarterback. But I think when you look at ceilings versus floors, I think Justin Fields here is the slam dunk pick. The most accurate passer per PFF of 10-plus yards down the field more. I think he was 65% on target. So can certainly put the ball where he wants and can do a lot with his legs as a pure runner as well. So Justin Fields here to the Jets at number 2.
And we're just going to super lock that in, right, Fields? Because week 1, you switched it up on me. You said you were talking Fields like he was going to be pick. I locked it in, then you went Wilson. So we're going Fields here?
Yep. Fields.
All right. And that brings me on the clock with the Dolphins. And I'm going to sit here for a second. I'm going to say, do you guys have any teams in mind that you want to trade up here? Because I think the Dolphins are a prime trade back spot.
So I don't have whose pick it would be, but I think, relatively speaking, Carolina's calling. I think they want to try to get a Zack Wilson or even a Trey Lance if they feel.
That's you, yeah.
That's you.
All right, so I'm calling here. Here for the Panthers.
All right, so you're the Panthers. Let me pull up the little trade here so we can see who has what picks. We'll Dolphins and NFC. Here we go. Panthers. All right, so these are the picks we're working off of for 2020. Oh, they added future picks. That's new this year. That's nice.
So when you look at Miami too, obviously have a ton of capital. Pick at 18, I believe 2 second rounders. There's really no business of them picking here because anybody that they'd be targeting, whether it's wide receiver or linebacker, probably going to be there at number 8.
Yep.
And obviously
and they just
kind of pick up some more capital.
The Titans' first-round pick last year, Isaiah Wilson, on top of taking a first-round tackle last year. So that probably – I mean, Isaiah Wilson, the year he had last year, you can't really
depend on him.
That's a flyer already, even 1 year into a first-round pick. That's just a flyer. So they could still go Sewell here, but you'd think with a first-round pick last year, trading for a different first-round pick at tackle last year, they're probably not taking Sewell at 3 anymore.
For sure. So I would say a 1, 8, obviously, a 2, and maybe a 2 next year. Probably moves you up 5 slots, maybe a little bit of an overpay. I don't obviously have Rich Hill's chart up of the trade value, but just to kind of get up there, I'm sure a bunch of teams will be calling. Obviously, the Patriots would love to get in there, but I don't think the Dolphins, who you just should have for 20 plus years, are going to help you get your biggest need in your franchise quarterback. So, but I think Carolina probably has the most to offer here. So let's do it.
I think that. All right, so I'm looking at it as the Dolphins' perspective. I think that they might want a first-round pick next year back. You're jumping up 5 spots, but you're jumping up to get your franchise quarterback, and you're also jumping your division rival in the Falcons for your franchise quarterback. I think the Dolphins would drive a bargain to try and get another first out of here. I also don't have the chart in front of me. I'll accept a second, mainly because I think the first is going to get rejected, and I don't want to have to play around this early into it. So I'll take the second. So, but I do think in real life they might need to be giving up a second first to get up.
For sure. I mean, you can play around with it for sure, but that locks you in with 3 picks in the next 2 years inside the top 40, realistically. So
yeah, and I think that's a prime spot. I don't know who Carolina has to offer, but that's kind of one of those spots where instead of giving up the extra first, who do you got?
Take on a player, right?
Yeah, who do you got on a contract that you're not really thrilled about, and that's a spot you can throw it in. My mind goes to the Patriots in a Gilmore type situation, but I mean, you never know with one of those. Usually, I feel like in those spots, instead of giving up, going the extra round up, you throw in a player that not necessarily a flyer, but somebody who can contribute.
Yeah, exactly. And they have the Panthers are kind of in a rebuilding situation, so there aren't many unless they really want to make a splash, and like a Christian McCaffrey type, where you throw him in there, large running back contract coming off an injured year, that might, kind of balance that out there. It's the one that pops up. But all right, Panthers are on the board at 3 now. We made that trade. And Spags, who you taking here, Wilson or Lance?
I'm going to go, and everybody knows my guy, Zack Wilson, but I think from a scheme fit and kind of what Matt Rule wants to do, I think this is a prime case for Trey Lance. Obviously, his pro day is coming up Friday at North Dakota State. I think he's going to wow a lot of teams. Obviously, the lack of starts kind of may concern teams and scare them away from trading this high of a price and moving up to get him. But I think when you look at, the best arm, strongest arm in the draft, I think it's Trey Lance. The best runner in the draft, Trey Lance. A guy who's kind of dripping with tools, I think, is a kind of a Josh Allen type comparison. And obviously, Teddy Bridgewater, everyone kind of knows his contract situation. So I don't think the Panthers are in really a mode to compete for a Super Bowl just yet. So good situation for him to kind of sit, maybe take that Patrick Mahomes route where he sits for the first 15 to 16 weeks or 3/4 of the season, then gets the starts. So yeah, Trey Lance here at 3 to the Panthers.
All right. And I think some people would not getting in the chat, but I think some people might think that trading up here to take Trey Lance is a bit of a reach where he might be of the top 4. He might be the guy that falls. But we've talked about this. We talked about this in QB. This is Ryan Jackson said, take Mac Jones at 3. But I think this is the type of the type of trade where we talked about it week 1. The Falcons seem like a perfect Trey Lance fit. So that very well could be their guy at 4. And if Trey Lance is your guy for the Panthers, you're definitely not taking the chance that the Falcons also love him and your division rival gets to take him before you get a chance. So I think coming up here to lock in Trey Lance is a great trade for the Panthers. And that takes us to the Falcons at 4, potentially losing on their guy, or maybe their guy fell and we see 4 quarterbacks go in a row. Keegan, what are you doing here?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't necessarily a spot where you want other people to make the decision for you. I think I've talked about that in some of the past mocks where if you're stuck between 2 guys, you kind of just let the guy in front of you make your decision for you. And I think Atlanta's probably they're probably fixed on Lance in terms of, the three quarterbacks that they could conceivably get.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I don't really see what else they do at this spot. Who do you? What was that?
Kyle Pitts potentially, but like I said, it's an obvious trade back situation as well.
It's like, who do you trade back with, or do you go ahead and take Wilson? You don't really know the thoughts on Wilson. I feel like Wilson's kind of a polarizing player. You could have him as your number 2 quarterback or your number 5 quarterback.
All right. Well, are you looking to trade here then?
I'm looking to trade.
All right.
So,
I own the 49ers pick, and I think that they are a prime trade up spot. So let's work that out a little bit here. So we've got the Falcons here.
49ers at 12?
Yeah, 49ers at 12. So we have 4 on the board, 12 on the board. The 49ers would have to pay more than the Panthers just did to move up because they're a little bit further down. So we'll say they have their second in here. They have we'll throw in a first next year. And then maybe another second, another third. Another third in 2020. We'll call it 2022. Keep all the picks in the next 2 years. So I'm offering you 12 this year, 43 this year, and my 1 and 3 next year for pick 4 here.
Sounds good. Go ahead and do it.
Send it over. And 49ers accepted, which is really Falcons accepting. But so now I'm on the clock at 4, and Zack Wilson is the Shanahan offense type quarterback in this draft. And that's kind of my argument for being a little bit lower on him, because the Shanahan type offense is what allows more somewhat mediocre talents like Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, etc., to see that level. Jimmy Garoppolo, Spags, to see that type of success. But Zack Wilson has better talent and traits than all of those guys, and I think he is the type of quarterback that Shanahan would absolutely love. Despite just the 1 year production, steps in here right away and can compete for the starting job, win the starting job, and find success year 1.
And this would be the first time ever 4 quarterbacks go within the first 4 picks. So
absolutely,
we're making history tonight.
Top 3 has only happened twice ever. I saw earlier today, and we're gonna go right for the 4th. I'm gonna take Zack Wilson here. I think Shanahan would love him. The 49ers have a ton of picks. I believe they just got more comp picks today. I don't think those are in here yet, but they got more comp picks to play with today too. They have a roster that's only a year removed from a Super Bowl appearance, almost a Super Bowl win. Jimmy Garoppolo away from a Super Bowl win.
Yep.
And Zack Wilson is arguably the most accurate deep ball quarterback in the class. So perfect fit. Studio Jim here says take a look at Wilson's film. It's incredible. He's not a 1 year wonder. I agree.
I agree, so Studio Jim. He's my guy. QB2.
I'll have to go back and look. But yeah, so we got 4. We got the top 4 quarterbacks off the board, 1 through 4 here. And that takes us to the trades are already messing me up. Who would pick second? Spags, you're at 5 with the Bengals.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. If you're the Bengals and their fans, you're salivating, you're sprinting to the podium. I think Penei Sewell's the obvious pick here. Protect Joe Burrow, right? You get your left tackle of the future. Mm-hmm. I think, removed from quarterbacks, arguably could be the first overall pick. But and then obviously Joe Thuney looks like he's going to hit the market. Could throw big money at him. I obviously don't know their cap situation up top of my head, but I think when you look at Joe Burrow and kind of the weapons they have on the outside, it's just that offensive line that's atrocious. That's kind of holding them back from being a much better team than they've been over the last few years. So Penei Sewell here at 5.
Yeah, I think that's a lock-in pick there. Especially with the offensive guard class. Brandon Sheriff got tagged, but Thuney hit the market. Kevin Zeitler got cut today, a former Bengal. Couldn't imagine a former Bengal wanting to come back, but it's definitely protecting Joe Burrow's top need, and Penei Sewell goes a long way towards helping. And that takes me on the clock with the Eagles at 6. I was wondering if a quarterback was going to fall here and make my decision interesting, but they didn't. So I think wide receiver is the clear pick here. Jamar Chase is my by far wide receiver 1. We talked about him in depth last week, so I'll spare you guys my love story again here. But I think Jamar Chase is I don't want to say a generational wide receiver prospect, but he's the best wide receiver prospect, in my opinion, since 2015, 2014 range. So I'm really high on Jamar Chase. I think this is a perfect fit despite the amount of investment that the Eagles have had at the position in recent years. And I'm just going to lock that in and send it to Keegan at 7 to the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, last week I had this pick too, and I kind of projected that, the Lions weren't going to have Golladay or Jones back, but this week we know Golladay is not coming back, and they've already kind of put the nail in the coffin for Jones and said that, they weren't really interested in a reunion. So they've got to go receiver here. They need someone for Jared Goff to throw the ball to. And I'm going to go Jalen Waddle. I like Devontae Smith probably more than other people do, but I think Waddle is just so much. He's so dynamic, and he brings, so many things to the offense, and they are going to need somebody who can do that. So Waddle's the pick at 7.
All right, and we're going Jalen Waddle here, back-to-back wide receivers, and this is we've had this is week 3 of the show, and we've had 2 weeks of nightmare scenarios for the Patriots at 15. This is just another one stacking up all the quarterbacks off the board, offensive tackle 1 off the board, and now we're seeing a little run on wide receivers that is potentially going to continue right here as I'm on the clock with the Dolphins.
I have a question.
Yep.
So since we traded, or since you guys traded, who had the 3rd pick originally?
I did.
You did, so you traded back. Okay, so I'm just making sure.
Yeah. So so that's how it'll work. Is the past couple weeks you've seen. If you guys have been watching, you'll see it just goes 1, 2, 3 in order. When the trades happen, as soon as we see that picker wheel order, that locks in who we own. So if we make a trade from there, we're still going to own their pick whenever they come up. So even though this is the 8th slot is Spag's pick, the Dolphins are my team, so I'm picking here. So good question to clarify that there. So I
was doing it for them, not me.
Yeah, exactly. So I hate to keep like these runs going because you don't really see this in the real draft too often, where you see like quarterbacks and then wide receivers. But trading back here, I was seeing if Sewell would fall, and I think a trade back and then taking him makes it a little more justifiable. Even though we just talked about they have 2 first-round offensive tackles from last year, if you trade back, gain more assets, and still your offensive tackle 1's there, that's a bit more of a no-brainer to me. But he's gone, and I think Mike Gesicki is good enough that you don't take Kyle Pitts here. They don't have a need at cornerback, and then I'm not going to take what I would feel as a slight reach at offensive tackle again, given the situation that they had. So it's Devontae Smith here, I think.
No Micah Parsons. I figured with
we'll talk about Micah Parsons in a minute. I have some thoughts. I did some linebacker studying this week, and I have some takes. I'm ready to get rolling, but I don't love the Micah Parsons value here at 8. So I'm gonna go with Devontae Smith, who I'm also a bit lower on, but I think wide receiver is a bigger need than linebacker, despite just cutting Kyle Van Noy. I also think linebacker is a position that's easier to fill on day 2, day 3, and in free agency, despite wide receivers' depth this year. So I'm gonna go with Smith. I'm gonna trust the him and Tua connection and see if he can be an outlier, as we talked about last week, that he'll need to be to find success at the NFL level. And that puts me right back on the clock at 9. This has been a spot where we just go cornerback past 2 weeks, and so I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I don't love the player at this high, but I'm just gonna switch it up a little bit for consistency's sake, and I'm gonna take Kwity Paye here. And just with the uncertainty around Von Miller, where he could be cut or traded, and he's also had some off-field stuff. I think edge is a sneaky need. Bradley Chubb's had a couple injuries early in his career. And I think that edge – I think the Dolphins are a team – we talked about it a little bit last week, right, where the Dolphins are a team that they could really go any direction here. They could trade up for a quarterback if they want to. They kind of just need to add talent to their team, which is why I think taking one of the top cornerbacks falling here is a more likely scenario, but let's just play it out with an edge here. So that takes Keegan up to 10 with the Cowboys.
Yeah, so 10's a tough spot for them, kind of with how the draft's shaken up a little bit. I think it might be too early to take a tackle, even though I did it last week. Are you really going to add another weapon to that offense when you have so many needs on defense? But I think they stay put. In this situation, they get to take their top corner. They haven't been able to do that in the past 2 weeks in the drafts that we've done. So my corner number 1 is Patrick Surtain. I think that they like Patrick Surtain as well. He'll bring kind of that outside. He's a little bit more physical, a little bit more versatile. He can play outside, inside. So Surtain at number 10 to the Cowboys.
All right, and then that takes us on to 11, which would be Spags, your back-to-back picks here.
Yeah, for sure. And
I think but you got the Giants here.
Yeah, the no-brainer here. I think too, even if he falls, you could see him go as high as top 5. It's kind of one of those guys that's all over the place when you look at different people's mock drafts, and I think it's how people value the position and the player. But I think if you're the Giants and Kyle Pitts is sitting there at 11, it's an absolute no-brainer. Evan Engram obviously spent the first-round pick on him a few years back. It's been a little bit of a disappointment, struggling, with drops and staying healthy. And I think this is a generational talent at tight end. I think probably the best tight end prospect to come out, maybe since Gronk. And I think teams may value him as a wide receiver. You never know, because I think there's so much you can do with him. I think the best comp for him is Darren Waller. We see that all over the place, and everybody would take a Darren Waller on their team.
And this is 3 weeks of saying I can't believe Kyle Pitts falls out of the top 10, and we just let him keep falling out of the top 10. So
I would have took him at 4, but that's key.
So I mean, there he is, Kyle Pitts at 11 to the Giants. And Keegan, you are on the clock after trading down. You almost got Spags guy at 12 here, but he didn't let it happen.
Yeah,
the Falcons are on the clock.
This is brutal for Atlanta. I mean, that's the pick I was going to go with. You get to kind of add to that receiving core a little bit, but they have a pretty big need. Offensive line wise, trying to, I say it a lot with the offensive lineman, but you got to get everything to fit correctly. And they had people playing out of position last year. I believe they just cut their center for a cap reason. So a guy who I've fallen in love with a little bit recently is Rashawn Slater, just because he's so versatile on the offensive line. And he kind of gives Atlanta what they need to be able to plug him in somewhere, let all the pieces fall correctly. So Slater at number 12 to Atlanta.
All right. That takes us to 13. And again, this order is getting me messed up. I believe this would be Keegan still, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah. All right. So here's the back-to-back picks. You got the Chargers now.
So with the Chargers, they have a sneaky need at linebacker, and I'm tempted to go ahead and take a linebacker just to get us talking a little bit. But their defensive line is horrendous, and I'm going to reach a little bit here. Give them somebody in the middle, kind of plug things up and help that second level of their defense that's really young and really inexperienced, and just kind of give them a mauler up front and help them out a little bit. So I'm going to go Christian Barmore, number 13 to the Chargers.
Oh, man. Okay. Barmore is someone whose stock seems to be fluctuating a bit lately. He was kind of locked into that late 1 range for a while, and now people had started talking maybe, a little bit higher into this range. We had talked about him here week 1. I've seen he's starting to fall like out of round 1 altogether lately. So he's someone who's where he ends up going on draft day is probably going to surprise someone one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, if Keegan's the GM of the Los Angeles Chargers, there's no way this pick ever happens. This pick doesn't even happen in the second round. But I've got a feeling it feels like something that they would do.
Alabama defensive tackle is a safe position to go. Alabama defensive player period is a safe position.
And I think I don't think it's a horrible idea to follow the San Francisco mold of San Francisco and Washington. They've both done it. Just build up that defensive line. Keep drafting defensive linemen. Keep drafting front 7 players, and everything's going to fall, or the pieces are going to fall where they may. So I think they go ahead and do it. I think that's the strategy that they'll start to take on.
And you guys can see up on the stream here. Not a big fan of this pick. Studio Jim said Chargers need to go offensive line. Annie Adams said Barmore this high is a reach, which sounds like Keegan agrees. He's just got a gut feeling here. But yeah, so that takes us to Spags at 14. And Spags, do you have a guy locked in here, or do you want to talk trade a little bit?
I'm going to talk trade with another team that I own to make it a little bit easier. So I think here Minnesota can kind of trade back, gain some capital late in the first round. Do they feel maybe Mac Jones is their guy to sit behind Kirk Cousins for a little bit? That could certainly be a need here, but I think a team like Chicago, that obviously kind of screwed up their quarterback situation a few years back, trades up and gets a guy, Mac Jones here at 14, kind of play around with the trade here. Obviously you trade him 20, maybe a third this year and, a late 5th or a 4th next year, something along those lines.
That's all you're charging? I think I'd be getting at least a second back, but we'll go,
I don't know, make it as realistic as possible. But I think this is a clear trade-up situation for a team like Chicago or Washington. We know how quarterbacks get valued. And I think a Mac Jones in Chicago has a nice ring to it.
All right, what do we think about this? We'll go Vikings give up 14th overall and 157th overall, and they get back 20th and 52nd from the Bears.
Sounds good to me.
All right. And last thing to take into consideration here, you're trading division rivals to get up and get your quarterback. You think the Vikings are still accepting that? Think Mac Jones, they're low enough on Mac Jones that they're cool with doing this?
They're low enough on him to do it. I didn't even factor
it
into it, but they're low enough to do it.
I would agree with the Vikings here. Oh, the Bears denied it. All right, let's just we'll cheese this in. We'll throw them like a 2025 fourth or some first. There we go. Cheese it to get this through. Oh my God, they denied it. They get an extra first out of it, and they denied it. So we'll go with the first in 2023. All right, the Bears are going crazy and playing hardball for their franchise quarterback. We'll trade one of the We'll try to make this a fourth that the Vikings swap at. Oh my God! All right, here we go. We'll go with the original plan. The third and the fifth next year. Third this year, fifth next year for just one. They're still denying it. My God! Take out the fifth. Trying to get them to take it. They don't want it. We'll throw in a first next year. All right, they don't want it. You're stuck at 14.
I'm stuck at 14.
You're stuck at 14 with the Vikings. You don't want it. They don't want it.
All right, well, if that's the case, then we'll save that. Maybe somebody with Washington, whoever that is, can do a similar trade up. But I think here, draft the best player available for them. They could obviously use some help in the second level. Eric Hendricks.
So real quick, Keegan, you own Washington at 19. You interested in that type of trade up?
I am not interested.
Okay, all right. So yeah, you're stuck. Spags.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I don't really care about these two teams, so it doesn't matter to me. But I think they go Micah Parsons here. I think another player, 6th ranked player on PFF's big board. I'm a big PFF guy, if you haven't heard. But Micah Parsons at 14 here, and Patriots fans are kicking themselves because Vikings sold Justin Jefferson, a pick before him last year, and now Micah Parsons this year.
All right, so this is our first linebacker. I'm going to bring a comment up on the board because I wanted to shout it out the moment I saw it because this summarizes one of the thoughts I had pretty well. But Studio Jim says, hot take, Zaven Collins is a better fit for New England than Parsons. Trade back and grab Collins. And then this is Ryan Jackson said, Micah LB3 Parsons. I kind of lean towards them a little bit. I watched some Parsons this week. I'm a little bit lower on him than I expected to be. Good pal Justice Mosqueda at JUMOSQ on Twitter, Jumosk, has a saying they like to say that linebackers are just trained pigs. They're taught see ball, get ball, and that's all they do. So like a truffle pig, sniffing out truffles. And I agree with that. And if you're following that line of thinking, then I can see the appeal for Parsons. Right? He was a pass rusher in high school, transitioned to off ball linebacker in college. So he's only got 2 years at the position, but he's an athletic freak, right? He's a peak athlete for a linebacker. So if you're making the plan, we're just going to take the athleticism, we'll tell him what to do and just hope that he runs in the right direction to do it. Then I get the love there. But in terms of actual linebacker instincts, in terms of consistently making plays, I didn't really see it with him too much. There was a lot of times where he kind of just he ran where he thought the play was going to go. The play doesn't go there, and he's completely washed out of the play. Or then he's kind of guessing at where the play is, or he's waiting to react to where the play is going, and then he lets himself get washed out of it. I didn't see someone that attacked too well. Honestly, think Parsons goes to Detroit at 8 because of Dan Campbell wanting meathead football. I mean, that's the exact. And in his defense is that he's only been in the position 2 years, right? Where there's still plenty of time for him to learn and grow. But as of right now, I didn't see that like top 5, top 3, top 10 type player. And I think that he's someone like we talked about with Devontae Smith last week, where I get the upside for him to go this high, but I'm going to let someone else take that gamble. I'm not going to be kicking myself, especially with the off-field stuff that he's talked about. I'm not going to be kicking myself if he doesn't end up as the Patriots. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the Parsons pick for me, like the off-field stuff kind of lowers me on him more than on-field stuff. I think he's a damn good football player. Like we see right here, poor angles, he's not instinctive. Poor angles is something that you teach. And, like an NFL coach can teach somebody how to take a good angle. And the instincts come with time. I mean, like the best linebackers in the world, their first year playing the position, they weren't, like great instinctual players, making the right play all the time. I think he's got just good football instincts. He's smart. He can get off blocks. He can avoid blocks. I think he's a really good player. But this is another situation with, like you mentioned, Devontae Smith kind of, they start out so high, and then once you drop them a little bit, it goes a little bit too far. You just want to keep dropping them down the board, and I don't think that should be the situation with Parsons. So I like the pick at 14. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean,
your pick.
Absolutely, freak athlete. I think he's a day one impact player. Like Keegan said, I think there's definitely some touch up there, and obviously he didn't play this year too, so
right.
Expect some rust. But I think generally too, it's a pretty deep linebacker class, especially when you get into kind of day two. The Jibril Cox, who I think is the best cover linebacker. Kind of where do people find Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Cameron McGrone, Chaz Surratt, Nick Bolton, Dylan Moses, Baron Brown, and like there's some really good linebackers.
Yep.
That I'll be curious to see how many go in round one, but I think this sort of position is really going to fill up early day two, because I think there's some really good prospects that teams are, they'll punt on it in round one and just rely on the depth kind of later in the draft.
I completely agree with what you just said, and that's one of the reasons I am. So Parsons is still probably my LB1 as much as I just talked down on him, just because one, I was a little bit underwhelmed with the linebacker class as a whole, at least in the top half of the first round talks. I like them a lot, like early day two, late day one. I think there's a lot of value there. I don't see so much here in the middle of the first round. So Parsons, just because of that athletic talent and the see ball, get ball aspect that linebackers have, I think that you can take that athleticism and coach him up a little bit, and you still have a serviceable player and the potential to have an elite linebacker. So I get it here. And again, he's still probably my linebacker one. I think that there are other linebackers the Patriots will like more, because they haven't really always gone with that athleticism mold, right? For linebacker, they're looking for more of the smart, instinctual guys. And I don't think that's Parsons right now. And they already have that kind of Jamie Collins role filled out with Josh Uche. For at least the short-term future, it looks like he's going to be a hit. So I'm completely okay with Parsons going before the Patriots. If he was here at 15, I wouldn't have ended up taking him. But I do think he still ends up linebacker one. I think he's got a chance to go higher than this as long as the off-field stuff checks out. But that takes us to the pick that everyone cares about, the Patriots here. I'm on the clock. Studio Jim here, just another point, said there are 4 linebackers that meet the Belichick size requirements. Parsons, Collins, Browning are the top 3. And I'm going to throw this up on the board here because if you guys watched last week, you know that I'm going to smile at this. Rashad Bateman should be the pick for the Pats this year's Justin Jefferson. If you were here last week, Andy Adam, you saw me wax poetic about Bateman. He is my man. He is my wide receiver 2 in this class. I'm so all in on Rashad Bateman to the point that
I took him at 15 last week, right?
Yes. No. You passed on him. You ended up passing on him. I remember because you set it up like it was going to be Bateman and you went somewhere else.
That's true. You're right.
I think you went edge maybe.
Yeah, you went pay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Bateman's an absolute star. I'm going to explore the trade backwaters here in Spag's honor because I know he's been dying to do this. So I'm going to explore the trade backs here. But if not, Bateman's going to be my pick at 15, and I'm going to be extremely happy about it. So do you guys
I've got an offer for you?
All right, let me see it.
Washington. They need to move up. They need a quarterback. They're at 19. You're not moving back too far, but it gives you the opportunity to not give up too much to move back a little bit, and you still get your pick in the first round. So,
all right. So let's detail this out. So here's how I'm going to do this. Same way that you worked through our pick week 1 where we were crowdsourcing this. I'm going to take your trade offer. I'm going to give my thoughts on it, and then I'm going to leave it up to the commenters here and see if they would take it. So let's detail out the offer here. So obviously 15, 19 would be involved. It's only a 4-pick drop, so I wouldn't be looking for too much here. I'd be maybe looking for 74. That fills your 50-pick gap in here, and then they're probably pretty unlikely to take this as it says. So I maybe give up that. Okay, and it looks like the comp picks did already get in here, by the way. So I'm going to swap out our comp pick here or maybe even round 5. We'll do round 5 here. They love trading away their first round picks. So if I were Bill here, and the Washington football team wanted to trade up, I'd want 74 back, and I'd be swinging them 158. Would you take that as Washington?
Yes.
All right. So that's the offer that we have on the board here. Chat. Let me know what you guys think. We'd be dropping back 4 spots. Here's the other part that I want to talk through. So Caleb Farley's on the board. This is the farthest he's fallen in 3 weeks of doing this. And I've talked about how cornerback is a sneaky need. So he is 1 pick. My thought process here is if we're going to go back to 19, there needs to be 4 to 5 guys here that we're comfortable taking. So Farley would be 1. A linebacker that I'll save thoughts about would be another one. Rashad Bateman would be another one. So that gets to 3. And then if those 3 all go, you're looking at like offensive tackle, which obviously the Trent Brown need filled in on. Trent Brown pick filled in. Again, as we said, that we're assuming that Washington's coming up to take Mac Jones. So there's really 3 more. We need 4 players here to fill in, assuming Mac Jones isn't one of them. So we've got Farley. We've got maybe J.C. Horn. We've got, a linebacker. We've got Rashad Bateman. And we've got, maybe an edge guy along those lines. So I think I personally would take this. I'd be comfortable taking that risk, especially where the Dolphins already took a wide receiver. I don't think the Dolphins are going to go wide receiver again. I don't think Arizona's in the market for a receiver. So that really just leaves a trade up or the Raiders to stop us from still getting Bateman at 19. So that's why I think Spags, what do you think? Would you take this if you're the Patriots?
100%. Yeah, you move back 4 slots, pick up a little bit more capital, and you probably get your guy at 19.
All right, and let's just a quick poll of the chat. Studio Jim says Belichick will take Farley or a team would trade up. Jack Morton said take it. Harry says he'll take it. Aldog says can't pass on Farley. Trade back again if not Farley. Studio Jim says take Farley. Team Crazy Matt says take the move back. And this is Ryan Jackson, who we also just saw again, said he'd either take Farley Horn. I think this is in a trade back scenario. So I think trade back has a slight edge. So that's what we're going to do here. So we got it on the board. We're going to send it over. If Washington declines this, I'm not going to play with it. I'm just going to take Bateman at 15, and we're going to be on our way. They took it. All right. So we're at 15, and you're going to take Mac Jones here, Keegan?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's Mac Jones at 15. And we're going to do what's called a little teaser real quick. I'm going to jump back on that trade pick. No, I'm not. Just kidding. So we are at 16, and that is Spags.
That's me.
Yes, you're right. That is you. That is
yep.
You.
Sorry, I didn't want you to blurt out a name.
Nope. Getting all messed up.
The Arizona Cardinals take Caleb Farley.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
going to take him anyways.
Yep. Perfect situation for them. It's perfect for Arizona because if Washington doesn't move up there, I think New England, you got to take Caleb Farley if you're New England. So this works out wonderfully for Arizona. They get their next corner or franchise corner.
Yeah, and I've kind of flirted out the idea too, right? Like Stephon Gilmore's been rumored in trade talks for it seems like a year now.
Yep.
When you kind of look at the NFC West, it's a prime situation to deal him. You don't play them for 3 years. You get him long gone out of your division, and you send him to a place where you really need a number 1 corner to compete. They just got moved on from Patrick Peterson, obviously probably on the back 9 of his career.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the teams they got to play, it's the most competitive division in football. You see the wide receivers they get out there. You really need a true one. So taking Farley here obviously probably cancels out that idea, but I think Arizona's either looking to trade for a number 1 or try to draft and kind of develop that guy, which I think is a no-brainer with Caleb Farley here.
And I think if Farley even fell to that 9, 10, 11 range, a trade up from the Cardinals wouldn't be a surprise because I think that corner slot is the far and away number 1 need here. And maybe they wait till first of him and Surtain goes and then they try to trade up for the other. But I think that him falling here is just a dream scenario for them. And that takes us to 17, though, with Spags on the clock.
Yeah. Talk about the Ravens and just an absolute mess. You let Khalil Mack walk, and you just turn all those picks into an absolute mess, spreading money around everywhere. Just poorly run. Yeah. But you moved on from Trent Brown. Obviously didn't work out, signed the biggest deal for an offensive lineman at the time. So I'm going to stick here, draft his replacement, Christian Darrisaw at 17 here from Virginia Tech. Tackle 3, it's Penei Sewell, and then Sewell and Slater are certainly 1A, 1B. I think a lot of people probably value Sewell more just because I think he's just the most pro-ready tackle we've seen in a few years. But Christian Darrisaw here at 17, I don't think they'll mess this pick up, but who knows? It's the Raiders.
It is the Raiders. That takes me to the Dolphins on the clock at 18. I traded back from 3 to 8 with the Panthers, added a couple draft picks there, and then I took Devontae Smith at 8. So they already got a wide receiver here, which means they're not taking Rashad Bateman, which means our plan worked out perfectly. We're getting him at 19 on the Patriots. But in terms of the the Dolphins. Again, they just traded for Isaiah Wilson, the Titans' first-round pick from last year. They also took Austin Jackson, an offensive tackle in the first round last year. So they essentially have 2 first-round offensive tackles from just last year's draft. So I think that takes tackle off the board here, and this is where I'm going to go linebacker. I passed on Parsons the first time, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the nice 3-named linebacker out of Notre Dame, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I think that the Dolphins have their secondary group kind of filled out, and we talked about this last week, right? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is Kyle Duggar. Maybe Kyle Duggar plus, maybe Kyle Duggar light, depending on how you feel about it. But he's that type of hybrid, weak side linebacker, strong safety role. In an ideal world, you put him on tight ends too. Kyle Duggar didn't do that too well last year, but that's the type of role that you envision for him, where you're sending him straight, you're having him shoot a gap and blow up a play. You're having him just destroy screens. You're having him take on tight ends, and you're having him play that kind of hybrid middle of the field star type role. I'm gonna tee you up here. How do you feel about the 3-name linebacker out of Notre Dame?
Yeah, I like him. I think, a lot of people flirt him to the Patriots. It just makes no sense. I mean, obviously linebacker is certainly a need, but you just drafted that guy last year, Kyle Duggar, who I think shined in year one. I think a lot of question marks came in, D2 kid, no offseason really, and stepped in and had to play, meaningful snaps for them. It's just drafting the same player you did last year. And like I said, I think Owusu-Koramoah probably may turn out to be a better player than Duggar, but if you're the Patriots and you're looking to go linebacker, it's Micah Parsons, Zaven Collins, even like a Nick Bolton, who I'm not even too high on, but kind of that downhill, run stuffer, thumper in the middle of the defense. So I don't think Owusu-Koramoah fits their need, but I do like the pick.
Correct. And we've already brought out the Duggar comparisons for Koramoah here, and I'd like to say I think that he's a better in pass coverage than Duggar showed as a rookie and Duggar showed in college. And that's why Koramoah is, a top 15, top 20 type prospect versus a round 2 and people thought that Duggar was a bit of a reach round 2 prospect, where Duggar was more that like day 2 in general prospect, and Koramoah is round 1. I think he is a much better pass defender, and I think that was what Duggar showed he was not very good at. But I think in terms of rushing the passer and blowing up the run, Duggar was extremely good this year, and you get similar things from Koramoah. If they didn't take Duggar last year, I think this is a player they'd be all over. But I think Duggar is still good enough and young enough that I completely agree with you, Spags. Of the top tier linebackers, he's last on their list.
Yeah, and they have those similarities, but like if you have to put a tag on both of them, Duggar's a safety and Koramoah is a linebacker. Like that's those are their positions. I mean, I think Duggar, once he gets a chance to actually play that like deep middle of the field role, I think he has a chance to be really good in coverage. He's not a man-to-man guy.
Right. More of a deep zone, take away the middle of the field versus lining up on tight ends and just trying to follow them around.
He's a downfield player. That's just, I mean, you saw it 1,000% last year in what he did and, where he excelled. He's at his best playing downfield. I think young Jock, my boy, I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to be, phenomenal if he ends up in the right system, if he's allowed to play the same role as Duggar. But like Spag said, it makes absolutely no sense to add both of those players back-to-back years with your top picks. Right. So I don't think it would ever be an option for them. So it's a good thing he's gone before, he didn't end up in New England. But I think it's a good move for Miami because you kind of replace they're not the same player, but you replace that spot on your defense. Right. Yeah, exactly. You replace that spot on your defense, and he brings a little bit more of a new age fit to football than Van Noy. Van Noy's he's a pass rusher, and he plays the run pretty well. Owusu-Koramoah can cover, he can rush the passer, he can play the run, all that stuff. So I think it's a good pick for them.
And of course, Brian Flores came from here. He's going to have similar thoughts on a lot of guys from the Belichick tree. So if there's a player that you would expect, barring, the lack of a need for him, that Belichick would like, it's safe to assume that Flores would like him a lot too. And I want to add 2 more things. He didn't do it every game, but in some games he had on both arms, he had a wristband and an armband, which is an elite linebacker look, especially, an athletic one like him. And like you just said, Keegan, young Jock, elite nickname. So he's got all of the intangibles working for him.
They called him the Joker, which is trash. Jock is so much better.
Absolutely young Jock.
He's like 23. Come on. Yeah. Put on a t-shirt.
So he's got all the intangibles that you need to succeed. But yeah, again, not someone that I would have been considering for the Patriots here, despite being in that group of linebackers. And I'm going to talk linebackers specifically for the Patriots here because I'm going to go Bateman, but we talked about Bateman specifically sufficiently last week, and I'll still get into my love for him again here. But for the Patriots, I think that they're in a really unique situation at linebacker where they definitely need one, but they also don't, in the sense that they don't just need to take the best one. They need someone. They need the next guy that's going to fit their scheme for a long time behind Hightower. They don't need to just, again, they're not going to just take young Jock over here because he's the best linebacker available on their board. They're going to take someone that fits. And that's where I think that passing on Micah Parsons is pretty justifiable because I don't think he's the type of linebacker that they historically like. He fits their size profile, as we talked about earlier, thanks to the comment. I'll try to find that again real quick here while I'm talking. But he doesn't, I don't think when you watch him play, he doesn't really fit like someone that they like too much. I can't find that comment, so I apologize. Oh, there it is. And so I think that there is a group of linebackers that fits for the Patriots a little better. And I'm going to talk about two of them here. I'm going to talk about Zaven Collins, and I'm going to talk about Baron Browning. And I think that's the one I'm going to focus on Browning because I don't think he fits. I think he's less likely to go in round one here.
Browning's my guy.
I like Browning a lot. I think that if you're just ranking linebackers, like I said earlier, I think Parsons still comes in at 1, although it's a smaller gap than most people have it. And then I have at linebacker 2, I just have a group of 3. I think it's Collins, Young Jock over here, and Baron Browning. I think it's just what do you want, and whatever you want or need more is how those shake out. So for the Patriots, I think I would go Zaven Collins, right behind him Baron Browning, and I wouldn't be surprised if they like Browning more. And then I would go Koromoa. But Collins is a big guy, 6'4", 230, 240-ish. He's got way more athleticism than you'd expect from someone that size. And I think he's the most instinctual of that group. Baron Browning has just versatility out the ass. I think that the reason that I would go Collins a little bit more over Browning is that I think Collins would be their next Hightower, and I could see them wanting to use Browning in more of like a Josh Uche, Kyle Van Noy role where you line him up off ball, you can drop him into coverage, and you can rush the passer, and he's kind of your chess piece in the front 7, where like a Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips is your chess piece for the back 7. I think that they would like Browning there because at Ohio State, they lined him up everywhere. They had him, a stand-up edge. They had him as their Mike. They had him as their Will. Tough Borland went down and he slid over to the mic. They had him lining up in that like star slot corner role from time to time.
His sophomore year, he had his hand in the dirt like 80% of his snaps. He's super athletic.
So we'll definitely talk about him more later. But those are the two guys. If I was going to go linebacker here, it would be between Collins and Browning. I would probably lean Collins for the Patriots specifically, but I think either of them are justifiable here.
Studio Jim called him out. I was going to say, I want to add one name, and it's Jamin Davis. He, he's an unbelievable athlete, and I think the comparison that I've given him is if Patrick Queen put on 30 pounds but played at Kentucky instead of LSU, that's Jamin Davis. He's a stupid athlete. He's great in coverage. Him in zone coverage, he's the best linebacker I've ever seen in zone coverage. It's unbelievable how well he plays kind of like against that slot role. He's physical. He can get off blocks. I've fallen in love with him in the past couple weeks. He's my LB4, which is kind of crazy compared to where he is on other people's boards. But Studio Jim, that's a great shout out. Jamin Davis is unbelievable.
I haven't gotten to him. I'll have to circle back and check him out. But let's get to the actual Patriots pick here, and that is my one true love, Rashad Bateman. This is a slam dunk. I would have taken him at 15 if we didn't get that trade down. Bateman's my wide receiver too. We talked about him plenty last week, so I'll spare you guys. Real quick. Studio Jim said Davis is his linebacker 4 as well. So Keegan and Davis, same person right now. But Bateman, I think someone earlier said that Rashad Bateman is this year's Justin Jefferson. If I can find that, I'll get that back up here. But I could not agree more. That is the exact comp that I used last year. I hate just running back the successful wide receiver from last year comp for whoever you like this year, but I think that it fits really well for Bateman. Bateman works a little bit more underneath than Jefferson does. I think Jefferson's more of they're two sides of the same coin where Bateman's more of the underneath intermediate guy and Jefferson's a bit more of a deep threat, but I think they win in a lot of the same ways, and they are remarkably similar athletically and size-wise. He'd be the best barring Edelman's health, he'd be the best wide receiver day one that's currently on the roster. You supplement this with like a Curtis Samuel, a Will Fuller, Corey Davis type, and the wide receiver room goes from looking terrible to looking pretty good in a quick second.
No complaints there. Completely agree. I love Bateman as well. Big Ten guy too, so he's ready.
Yeah. And Spags, you're up here. We've been keeping you in the dark a little bit. Your pick's back up here though, and the Bears failed to trade up for Mac Jones, ended up losing out on into a Washington football team here. So what are they going to do to recoup here at 20? Yeah,
so I think they obviously quarterbacks in need, miss out. But I think too when you look at Washington, the Bears here, what they need is wide receiver help, right? I mean, I know you tag Allen Robinson. I think they're lacking that number 2 guy, and who knows how long he'll be there if they can work out an extension. I'm going to go with Rondale Moore. I really like him. Might be a little bit of a reach here, but I think a guy who can come in and just absolutely change the complex, the ability of the offense. Super quick. I know I talk about it each week, but you want to see a dominant film, watch his film his freshman year versus Ohio State. Absolutely lit them up. Kind of opted out this year, but didn't really, they played a few games, didn't really maximize him, ran him on some screens and jet sweeps and all this. But I personally love Rondale Moore. A little bit undersized. There's some injury history there. Did meet with the Patriots last week or a few weeks ago, but I love Rondale Moore.
Jack Morton here says Patriots doing to the Bears, but Vikings did to the Patriots last year by stealing the better wide receiver, which, right side of history here. Imagine if the Patriots got Jefferson last year and then followed up with Bateman this year. But that takes us to me on the clock at 21 with the Colts here. And I hadn't thought about this pick. I think that this could be a trade back scenario. Do any of you guys have an idea for a trade up here?
I do not.
You don't? I think
I do.
Right.
I guess it'd have to go to Keegan, but a team like Jacksonville, right?
I was also thinking Jacksonville for a second.
Yeah, you get your franchise quarterback. You get, you get a new head coach in there. Team like we saw a few years ago, Gruden did it. Didn't really pan out, but kind of get the franchise going, the fans going again. You get 3 first-round picks, and with them sitting there at 33. Indy obviously losing some capital in that Carson Wentz trade, prime trade back example here. I think the Patriots could also be in the mix here with Jacksonville too, if they kind of wanted to get 3 picks inside the top, 15. So I think Jacksonville's a decent spot here. You grab 33, move up, 12 spots, and grab an extra, maybe a late day 2, early day 3 type deal.
So you're looking. Yeah, let's play around with it real quick because they also have 25 right here, and I thought that's where you're going with it. So let's throw the Colts and the Jags here, and of course Keegan owns the Jags, so he has final say here. But let's say 21, 25, drop the Colts down a few spots, and then maybe 4th round pick.
Yeah, a 4th or even a 3rd.
Yeah, we'll do the comp 4th here.
So the only reason I kind of paused on this a little bit is. What is Jacksonville moving up for? Do you guys have anything in mind? Let's talk through this because I think who they should be eyeing at 25, I think they can pick them up. So
all right, I mean, that's your call. If you think that he falls, if I owned the Jags here and I were trading up, I might be looking at J.C. Horn. I think J.C. Horn's fallen pretty far. The Jags have a need at corner.
They drafted Henderson last year. I mean, him or even like there's still some really good wide receivers on the board. Who knows what – I think Kadarius Toney would be a great fit with them. Pair him with kind of Laviska Shenault. Could do some crazy things offensively. Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall, some guys that could sneak in kind of to the – there's always that one wide receiver each year that kind of sneaks in the back end of the first round. Brandon Ayuk last year, N'Keal Harry. I mean, I don't think a lot of people saw him going round 1. We won't talk about that touchy subject, but there's always teams that kind of trade up and go get their guy or trade back and feel like they can get him. But yeah, I think you're right, Keegan. Where are they kind of trading up to get? I do think a team like Jacksonville though would typically try to get in to get 3 first rounders.
Yeah. So I think for me, if I own the Jags trading up here, I'd be coming up for J.C. Horn. I'd be afraid that he goes here to the Colts, who also have a need at corner. That would be my pick. They took CJ Henderson last year. He had a bit of an up and down year, and they still need a second corner across from him. So that would be, if I own the Jags, that would be what I'd be doing here. But if you have a different plan in mind, Keegan, that's your call.
Jags. We called the Jags. They said absolutely not and hung up on it.
So just real quick. So the Jags, they've got three. Like in my mind, there's three players there that they pick. Yep. There's only 3 draft spots in front of them. So
there's 4 too. Just for full, they got 4. The Colts here, and then 3 more picks, and then they're up.
So there's 4. So you're kind of just hoping that the 2 of them don't take one of your guys. So
all right. So
I think they stay put just because, like, even you talk about getting into the first round. Getting into the first round costs you a hell of a lot more than trading up a few spots in the first round. So I think they stay put.
All right, so let's do it here. And I don't know who you're thinking of. Like I said, JC Horn would be the guy there.
Cancel the trade. It ain't happening.
Yeah. We're not trading. But I would imagine JC Horn would be one of the 3 that you're hoping. And I'm taking him for the Colts here, though. So he's off the board here. I think the Colts still need help at corner. Xavier Rhodes is probably leaving. Could be back. Colts have cap space. From what I've seen from Colts fans I follow on Twitter, doesn't seem like he's probably going to be back. So you follow that up. J.C. Horn's a guy who we've seen go as high as, I think, 16, maybe even a little bit higher in the past couple weeks. So this is him falling a little bit. I think this is an easy pick for the Colts here.
Yeah, so I think I'm up at 22.
Yep.
So Tennessee all of a sudden has like a really big need for defensive backs. They released Kenny Vaccaro and Malcolm Butler today.
Yep.
So I think they take the top guy available, and it's Tavon Morg, the safety out of TCU. He's just a super solid option, kind of in the back half of the first round. You get that 5th-year option on him. I think he can slide in and play day one. And who's the other safety there in Tennessee? Kevin Byard. You kind of learn from him a little bit, and he can kind of take over for Byard role, and then maybe you sign another safety. Here in a couple years or whatever. But I think that's the safest pick right here for Tennessee. I don't think they want any situation like they had last year. So just take a safe, good player who's ready to contribute right away. It's Tavon Morg.
All right, and then Spags, you're on the clock with the Jets. You took Justin Fields at 2 to start their draft off, and now they're on the clock again at 23.
Yeah, with Salah, or however you pronounce his name, he's going. There's no way with 2 first-round picks. I mean, obviously, quarterback at 2 is the obvious one, but he's drafting a defensive player. There's just no doubt about it. I think the pick here, I'm going to go with edge. Gregory Rousseau could certainly make an argument for him being edge 2 in this class. Big freak, can get to the passer. I love the pick. I think he maybe fell a little bit. Some people like him, even ahead of pay, if you watch some people. But I think Gregory Rousseau here at, what are we at, 23 is tremendous value for the Jets. You get an edge rusher day one that's ready to go, as well as your franchise quarterback.
All right, and that takes me on the clock with Steelers at 24. And I really want to force a linebacker here just so we can talk about them, because they're sort of falling in this one a little bit. But I don't see it for the Steelers. They've got Devin Bush, who's been a bit up and down, but still a young middle linebacker here. They could use some edge help. It looks like Bud Dupree is going to leave after they didn't tag him, so they could use some help across from TJ Watt. But I'm just going to stick with offensive tackle. The Steelers had the worst run game in football last year. Running the ball isn't the most important thing in the world, we all know, but having an offensive line, the root of their issue is really the offensive line. So I'm going to go top tackle on the board, which I honestly don't know much about, and so I'm just going to take top tackle according to the fine folks over at the Draft Network and take Sam Cosmi here. And that brings us to the Jags at 25, who was hoping that Keegan had 3 players on his board for the Jags with 4 picks to go. How'd that work out for you?
Worked out perfectly. They get the number 2 guy that I had in mind. We saw it yesterday with how some people can be stupid enough to not realize that protecting your young quarterback is the number one, thing that you need to do. Like we saw Gary Tangway was like, oh, boring. The Patriots traded for a really good offensive tackle for like nothing. Mm-hmm. We won't get into it, but Jacksonville, they need to protect their young quarterback. That's priority number 1. I don't care about his weapons or anything like that. It's Trevor Lawrence. He can get the ball to anybody. Protect him. Make sure he's healthy. Make sure, he's got a little bit of time to deliver the ball. So I go Elijah Vera Tucker here. He's an interior player, but he's a really good interior player. I think he could possibly move outside. He's not very long, but if you're good enough, you don't need to be. We saw like Isaiah Wynn when he's actually on the field, he's really good. So They go Vera Vera Tucker, get somebody to protect their quarterback.
And after franchise tagging Cam Robinson on Monday, I think that interior pick makes a lot more sense too. So I'm glad you went that direction over like a Tevin Jenkins type at tackle. But that takes us to the Browns at 26. Spags, it's you.
Yeah, I think here linebackers certainly a need for them. Zaven Collins, who you can allude to a little bit more, Ryan, certainly has a case to be linebacker one in this year's class. Haven't watched too much of him, but I think here with Stefanski loading up, obviously have a lot of weapons on the outside. I think Zaven Collins makes a lot of sense here.
All right, let's go Collins and let's dive into him a little bit. So I've already given my thoughts on him a little bit. I think that in terms of who the Patriots would like, I think he easily could be their linebacker one and could be a trade back candidate to take. But Keegan, what do you think of Collins here?
I think he brings that kind of not edge player, but not really an off-ball linebacker, kind of the hybrid. Get him on the outside of the defense, kind of outside the tackle, and let him move around a little bit. I think he fits that role, and that's not somebody that, off the top of my mind, that Cleveland has right now. Right. I think that they could use that kind of player on their defense.
Oh, can you guys hear me? Spags, you hear me?
I can hear you.
I think Keegan might have dropped. All right, yeah. All right, cool. I was worried it was me. My internet's been in and out today, but I was worried it was
Am I here?
For a second. Yeah. All right, you're back. Keep it going.
Right. Yeah, so I think he's a perfect pick here for the Browns specifically. But like we mentioned earlier with the Patriots, I don't know about that spot. If they're going to draft a linebacker, is that the kind of linebacker that they're going to draft? We'll get into it more in later draft.
Losing him.
Yeah, Keegan's cutting in and out, so I'm gonna jump in real quick here while Keegan gets figured out. So I would disagree with Keegan a little bit, where I do think that Collins would be the linebacker that the Patriots would be interested in. I think that he's a bit more athletic than Hightower. He's definitely more athletic than Hightower at this point in Hightower's career. I think he's a bit more athletic than Hightower was coming out. I think he's instinctual the way Hightower was. He's the type of guy that you can drop into coverage, but you can also rush him and kind of have him shoot those gaps. He's pretty good against the run. He's gonna read the defense pretty well against the run. He's smart where he's not someone that needs to read and react where the play is going. A lot of times he's gonna already know where the play is going and be flowing that way before they even get into the play. So I'm pretty high on Collins. I think that this late one range is perfect. The studio Jim says Collins is elite footwork. I completely agree with that. He's so smooth in space, especially for his size. He gets downhill. He flips his hips from, kind of reading the play or dropping into coverage and flips his hips and gets moving upfield so quickly. I think that he's the type of guy that the Patriots love, assuming that his chalkboard stuff works as well as what we see on the field, or looks as good as what we see on the field. I think that any team in the late half of the first round would be happy to have him. And again, there's a case that he's linebacker one. I think that Parsons' athletic profile gives him the edge for that linebacker one discussion. But if you're looking beyond him, I think that Collins has as good a case as anyone. That's going to take us to the Ravens at 27, which is me. And they're kind of in a weird spot. They could go a lot of directions. I'm just going to get Lamar Jackson some damn help because it's been cruel what they've been doing to him. With it's been basically Mark Andrews or like the 2 plays a game where Marquise Brown gets open deep. Otherwise, they really have nothing going on. So I'm gonna take Terrace Marshall here. I think that Kadarius Toney would be a really fun, interesting fit there, but they really need someone that's just a true wide receiver. Miles Boykin, the wide receiver from Notre Dame a couple years ago, was a 5th round pick, and he's really their second wide receiver right now. And he's been okay. It's not been a bad draft pick, but he's not someone that should be a wide receiver 2 anywhere. I think Terrace Marshall's, we talked about him again last week. He snuck into the first round for us, and he's been someone that's been getting slept on a bit because Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase were at LSU last year, but Terrace Marshall's really good. And I think that he would be their best wide receiver like the second he steps on the field. And Lamar Jackson hasn't had that type of actual receiver since he's been in Baltimore. And he has an MVP. So he has an MVP without that real like wide receiver 1 type. So this allows Hollywood Brown to maybe, if Marshall hits or any wide receiver that they bring in hits, that lessens the load on Hollywood Brown. It lessens
they haven't been that great drafting receivers either. Everyone hates on the Patriots, but
correct. They haven't. But if they can hit here, then I think that just opens up so much, because you still have Mark Andrews at tight end, but now you have that real outside receiver, which makes Hollywood Brown get less attention. It makes him more susceptible to get open deep. Screen passes to him might work a little bit better, where teams just aren't focused on, okay, outside, we just need to stop him. And he's a small guy that hasn't been injured, so this gives you coverage there as well. I think that they are that one true wide receiver away from really unlocking their offense to being top tier, along with like the Chiefs of the league. And that brings us right to the Saints, who are another team in an interesting spot with their cap situation. We have really no clue where they're going to go, but that's Keegan, I believe, right?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. I think this is a perfect trade back spot. I don't even know if they can afford a first round pick right now. They're in a horrible situation. Right. So I think this is a trade back spot completely out of the first round, if that's possible. Well, that makes sense. I guess I would just pick for the team.
That's whoever trades up will be, whoever owns that team. So like if I wanted to get the Patriots up in here, I could take them.
Okay.
I don't think I want to do that. I think that after that trade back, I'm pretty happy with how the Patriots draft is looking for right now. But I mean, this could be a spot where the Jaguars come in from 33 to get.
Or I was going to say, or the Jets at 34, whatever
34,
that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville was where I was thinking. So
all right,
why don't we try Jacksonville?
All right, and that's both of you. So just negotiate against yourself. Obviously, it would be 28 and 33.
33. Give me if I'm New Orleans, I'm 65.
I think that's a little high. Yeah.
A little high. Maybe 106.
All right, let's see. Still going to be a
little
too
high.
I was thinking maybe because you're only dropping back 5 picks. You're falling out of the first round, but it's really not that far of a drop. Let's maybe this late 4, and then you swing back like a 5 next year or something. No, they don't even like that.
Maybe just give them like the other comp pick. What's it, 170 or whatever?
I think 133 is 170 here, and then we'll throw in the Saints 6th rounder just to get this through here. All right, the Jaguars took that, so now the Jaguars are on the clock at 28.
So I think it's controversial to take a running back in the first round. People do not like that, but why don't you keep your quarterback happy? Draft his college teammate. He's not my running back one, but who knows with the way Jacksonville does things. Travis Etienne.
No love for James Robinson, huh? After that unbelievable rookie year.
Yeah, great rookie year, but I mean, do you want a 2-down player? Or do you want a 3-down player?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I love Etienne.
And I think that the two of them would complement each other really well. Where Robinson's a little bit bigger, he's more of that balance, one cut type of guy, and Etienne's got that speed, the receiving game ability. I think they would play off each other really well. I do need to shout out though where I would have gone with this, just because I'm an honorary member of Jaguars Twitter, and I know that this is a big crush in those circles, so I need to shout it out. Greg Newsome here. After they didn't go cornerback with their last pick, they ended up going who we take from Elijah Vera Tucker there after J.C. Horn got taken at 21.
Yep.
I think Greg Newsome here at 28. I know a lot of them want him at 25 or even in a small trade up. If they were able to come out of this with Trevor Lawrence, Elijah Vera Tucker, and then a trade up for Greg Newsome, I know that Jags fans would be super happy. But I like the ETN pick a lot here too, where I think I'm
saving Greg
Robinson
Newsome.
really well.
I'm saving Greg Newsome to be the next in line for Bill Belichick's 2nd round DB pick. He's perfect for it.
He is perfect for it. All right, and that takes us to the Packers at 29. That is Spags.
Yeah, as much as I want to go linebacker here, Aaron Rodgers needs help, and I'm going to go with probably one of my favorite players in the draft, Kadarius Toney, human joystick. Get some help, get some speed inside. Devontae Adams, I think the best receiver in football. Obviously, you can play inside, outside, do whatever you want with him, but get Aaron Rodgers some help. You saw what they did towards the end of the year with Tavon Austin. So I think Kadarius Toney makes a ton of sense here, and I do think he squeaks into the first round.
24-year-old Tavon Austin.
Yeah. And we talked about this. We talked about this last week with Tony when we were talking about receivers. I'm a little bit lower on him than you guys, but he's certainly a fun gadget player that when you have an offense that's already almost complete like the Packers, that's the type of pick where it makes sense and you just put yourself over the top, right? And then that takes us to the Bills here, and I'm gonna it's not even really a force because they're set to lose Matt Milano. They need a linebacker. I was kind of eyeing here maybe a trade up for a wide receiver for the Bills and like a shocking move where they just go all in on that offense. They just had to cut John Brown, and maybe they try to get like a Bateman type to play across Diggs and keep that offense going. But nothing panned out. I wasn't gonna let him not come to the Patriots, of course, with Bateman. So I'm going to go linebacker here, and I want to talk about Nick Bolton, but unless he goes in the next 2 picks, let's talk about him after the draft because I want to give our guy Spags, Baron Browning, some love here. So why don't you tell me why you're a big Browning fan?
I'm a big Browning guy. I think just a guy that can do so much on the field, big, powerful guy, can play in the edge, really good in coverage, really good against the run. I do think a little bit of a reach here, but certainly, like I said, there's always those guys that can kind of squeak in towards the end of round 1. I think Browning gets his name called inside the top 50 just because of his experience. I mean, when you talk about, Ohio State and their linebackers, I mean, people say, oh, it's, the lack of playing time. They had Justin Hilliard, Baron Browning, Pete Werner, ton of guys in there that played. Tough Borland, yeah, as well. So I love Browning. I like the pick here. I don't think you can go wrong with an Ohio State linebacker.
Yeah, and so I was just taking a look at you guys' spreadsheet again. I'll put it on the screen real quick here so you guys can see it. And I was looking down here. You got Baron Browning in like a 3rd round range, and I guess I'm higher on. I was gonna say I guess I'm a little bit higher on them than you guys because this is the range where I'd be happy taking him. I think that he's right in the mix for that linebacker 2 conversation. Honestly, again, if the Patriots had linebacker in mind with the trade down, and they liked Baron Browning more than Zaven Collins and Nick Bolton and whoever else was on the board, I'd have no issue with it. They wanted to trade down a little bit and take Baron Browning in the 1st, I'd be completely on board. His versatility is off the charts. Like you said earlier, Keegan, when we were talking about him, like 2 years ago, he played like 80% of the snaps with his hand in the dirt, and that pass rushing ability shows. He's surprisingly fluent in coverage for someone who spent that much time rushing the passer. He had snaps for Ohio State where he was playing like that star role on the slot wide receiver. He had, after Tough Borland went down, he was playing middle linebacker. He played a lot of will linebacker when Tough Borland was healthy. I just think that he is someone that you take him and you play him wherever you like him, which could be different on each week, which we saw, like a Jamie Collins type absolutely thrived in New England. The reason that I would take Zaven Collins ahead of him for New England again is that I think that Josh Uche kind of already fills that role a little bit. Josh Uche fills that role a little bit. So I think it would be just a little bit of a duplication of resources, and they kind of need their future Mike linebacker behind Hightower. But I love Baron Browning. I think this would be a great pick for the Bills here.
Yeah, Spags loves his 5-star guys. Baron Browning, another 5-star guy. I mean, I'm a little bit of an Ohio State fan. Been following him, and I remember like when he signed with Ohio State, and it was like, damn, that's a top 5 pick in a few years. It didn't really work out because of the depth that they have on that defense. Like they've got like 4 or 5 picks going every year. But he's a really good player, and I think this is a good spot for him. But if I can jump to the next pick,
yep, go for it.
I'm gonna set Spags up again, and I'm gonna take his guy Jibril Cox for Kansas City, another linebacker, just so we can get into it a little bit.
Yep.
I think he's exactly what that defense needs, like a versatile linebacker who can play in coverage, who can play downhill.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, perfect for what Kansas City needs. So I'm setting it up for you. Just tell us your love story.
I'm glad you set it up because I didn't expect him to go here, and that was the first post round 1 linebacker I was going to set Spags up for. So go ahead, Spags.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, experienced player at multiple levels. Obviously, North Dakota State transfer, really good in coverage. I think the best cover linebacker in the draft. Played some time in the slot at North Dakota State, and really played well in man coverage. Explosiveness, athleticism, plays downhill, physical. 6'3", 233, a little bit undersized for how like New England would like their linebackers. But if I'm the Patriots, I'm hoping a Jibril Cox or a Baron Browning slips in that 46 range. That's kind of my area where I've picked Jibril Cox. I've done, mock draft 1.0, 2.0. Jibril Cox has been picked every single time at pick 46 or 51, wherever I traded out. So it might be a little bit of a reach here, but like I said, if he goes in the 1st round, I'll be pumped. I love LSU too. That's my team. I
was a lifelong LSU fan for about 12 months while Joe Burrow was there. So
yeah,
I definitely get the LSU.
If you weren't, I was alluding to that too.
Yeah. So Jibril Cox is one of the linebackers that I didn't really get to in my viewings this week, so I was happy to.
There's one play I think it's against Texas A&M where he's lined up with I think it's a running back out of the backfield. It was against Texas A&M because I knew Kellen Mond threw it, and that's when I was completely out on him. He was completely like he just got when you see it like in live, just got absolutely eaten up. Snapped his ankles, was able to kind of regain his position, gain ground, and make a one-handed pick over the middle for a pick six. He just completely.
I think I've seen that play on Twitter. Yep.
Yeah, I tweeted it. That's when I saw Kellen Mond. No, I'm out.
I think that might have been Cox's second drive, like as an LSU player. Like it was week 1.
I think it was week 1. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was early on. You know actually who it was? It was KJ Costello, Mississippi State. I'm pretty sure. If I'm thinking about the same play.
I think it was this. Well, it had to be this year, right? I thought did Mond not play?
No, Mond did, but week 1 they played Mississippi State.
Maybe it was, but I'm gonna in my head it's still
they're the same uniform. So yeah. But no, yeah, Jibril Cox, like he's one of those guys. He showed it. He like for a fact this year he can just step in and be the number 1 linebacker on your team. Like he'd be that guy in the middle who can kind of do everything. So that's why I picked him here. I know it's a bit of a reach, but let's get into some linebackers, and what else would Kansas City have done at the spot?
They're a team that like kind of has the luxury of taking reaches for guys they like. We saw it last year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another LSU guy. So,
yep.
But Spags, take us home here with the Bucks 32.
Yeah, I think obviously linebacker would have been a spot. I think everyone kind of assumed Levante David would maybe hit the market, but obviously lock him up.
Didn't happen.
Shaq Barrett's going to hit the market. He's going to get paid. I don't think it's by Tampa. Obviously, they got to work something out with Godwin, who's currently tagged. I'm going to go with Jason Owe, the edge out of Penn State. I drafted him in the first round last year. Kind of a little bit of a sleeper on some teams' boards. I think we'll talk this week, but I think we should probably talk edge next week, just because I think there's some interesting prospects. Aziz Alogiari, Rousseau, Pay, Jalen Phillips. There's some guys that can kind of sneak into the first round. I'm a big believer in how do you get elite edge talent and keep it. You get it in the first round. That's just where teams get it. I love Owe. I believe he's edge. What is he on our board? I think we have him a little low, edge 10.
Yeah, I think I did something special.
We're doing something different with this Owe, as he's a different prospect than most. So go ahead, Keegan. Why don't you allude to it?
I think so. He's like the guy that comes to mind when system fit matters. You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody wants to play him on the edge to play the run, then that's a waste of a pick, and that's a waste of his talents. But I think Tampa Bay is one of those teams that they don't mind throwing a guy out there and just tell him to go get the football, go rush the passer. That's what Owe does. That's what he does well. But I think that's all that he does. So it might be a little bit of a reach for the way we think, following the Patriots. You need a complete edge player who can set the edge and play the run, but always going to go get the quarterback. He's going to have, 7-8 sacks probably in his first year. So exactly, 100% athlete, 0 production, but is that his fault or is that how he was used? So throw him in a good system, throw him in a system that lets him do what he does best, and I think that's a good pick at 32.
All right, and that finishes up the draft. So let's do a quick recap, and then we'll talk some linebackers that we didn't quite get to. So the Jags took Trevor Lawrence at 1. The Jets took Justin Fields at 2. The Panthers were our first ever Pat's Pulpit mock draft show trade up to 3. They traded the 8th pick, the 39th pick, and a 2022 second-round pick to get to 3 from the Dolphins and took Trey Lance. Then we followed up with our second ever trade. The 49ers traded pick 12, pick 43, and a 1 and a 3 next year to go from 12 to 4 and take Zack Wilson. We had 4 quarterbacks start off the draft. First time that would ever happen in NFL draft history. The Bengals were thrilled to see Penei Sewell fall there, and the Eagles were equally thrilled to see Chase fall to 6. Lions took Jalen Waddle at 7. The Dolphins, after that trade down, took that third group of that top-tier wide receivers and Devontae Smith at 8. We had our first little bit of a reach here at 9 with Kwity Paye, the edge for Denver. The Cowboys took Surtain, keeping their streak of cornerbacks alive. Kyle Pitts once again fell out of the top 10, fell to 11. The Falcons traded back to 12 and still took offensive tackle, which could very well be the pick at 4 with Sewell, and they got Rashawn Slater. Chargers had arguably the biggest reach. Definitely the fan reaction's least favorite pick of the night with Christian Barmore at 13. The Vikings took Micah Parsons at 14. The Patriots traded back at 15, and Washington came up to get Mac Jones. They gave up a third-round pick there to get him and got a fifth-round pick back. They took Mac Jones at 15. The Cardinals saw Caleb Farley, arguably edge one, top 10, or cornerback one, top 10 talent, fall to 16. Christian Darrisaw goes 17 to the Raiders. Young jock Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah goes to the Dolphins at 18. The Patriots still get my guy Rashad Bateman at 19 after the trade back. Rondale Moore goes 20 to the Bears. J.C. Horn 21 to the Colts. Jovan Morig 22 to the Titans after their losses in the defensive backfield the past couple of days. Gregory Russo to the Jets at 23. Sam Cosmi to the Steelers. Elijah Vera Tucker at 25 to the Jaguars after they stood pat instead of trading up. Zaven Collins to the Browns. Terrace Marshall to the Ravens. The Jags get back up into the first round for the third time and take Travis Etienne. Kadarius Toney goes to the Packers. Baron Browning goes to the Bills. Jibril Cox goes to the Chiefs, and Jason Owe goes to the Buccaneers to round out the draft. So we had nice 4 trades in the first ever trade mock draft that we've done. We had a couple more discussions that didn't pan out, and I think that worked out pretty well. So let's talk a couple more linebackers that we didn't get to. We mentioned a couple times tonight. Let's start with Nick Bolton. You said you were a little bit lower on him, Spag. So why is that?
Yeah, Pat loves him, so it's kind of ironic. But yeah, I just think it's really struggling coverage from what I've seen. I like him in kind of a high tower filler role, but I just don't think you draft that in round 1 or even.
He's a thumper.
Yeah, he's a thumper, right? Like, and you see guys in linebackers that they've typically taken, like in Landon Roberts late, like 6th round, 4th, kind of that day 3 range. But I mean, he's physical as hell, downhill. True run stuffer in the middle of the defense. So I like, if you're trying to draft a Mike linebacker leader of your, that second level, Bolton's your guy. I just don't think in round 1 it makes much sense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There was 5 or 6 guys that I got to, and Bolton was kind of the one that I liked him, but he was a little bit lower than the rest of them that I saw. He's like a clear day 2 value type pick. He reminds me a lot of Micah Parsons, where he's got that athleticism. It's not completely rounded out, but he's not as athletic as Parsons, where the upside's there that I feel comfortable taking him round 1. I think you take him like mid to late second when you might linebacker might be a need, but it's not like a dire need. And you see if he hits, I think that's a good spot. And then we'll move on and we'll hit Dylan Moses here real quick.
Yeah, I'll chat on him a little bit just because I got to jump. Busy man tonight, jumping on 3 pods, 3 shows. No, I mean, Moses was a slam dunk first rounder going into last year. Tears his ACL in camp. Everyone kind of thought he'd declare. Ends up staying at Alabama. Saw his draft stock dip a little bit. I like him a lot. I think when you're talking about prospects that didn't really benefit from that extra year in school, I think that ACL injury really kind of hurt him. But a little undersized at the position, 6'3", 235, was viewed, like I said, as one of the top linebackers and a surefire first-round pick. Really good against the run, really good sideline to sideline, but makes his mistakes. I don't think he's great in coverage. Got away with a lot at Bama kind of due to that raw athleticism and kind of his play speed. And I think, Keegan, you kind of wrote this too, which you can allude to before I bounce, is kind of got exposed a little bit in that RPO game that we see teams kind of running a lot more of now with these type of quarterbacks. So I think Moses is a good day 2 pick. But like I said, a little bit undersized of typically what they like their linebackers.
And go ahead, Keegan. I was just
on those like misdirection plays. He's a guesser. He's kind of going to go where he thinks the decision should be made, and a lot of times when he's trying to make up on those plays, he just gets washed and gets completely taken out of the play, and it's super like evident. It's something that you see very clearly. Like, even if you didn't know what you were looking for, which some say I might not know what I'm looking for, I definitely could see that. So that's kind of a problem.
All right. And yeah, and he's the type of guy though that it's easy to see a path where the Patriots like him enough. I was going to queue up Spags to say a quick goodbye, but he had to get off here and get to his next spot in time. But we appreciate Spags for hanging out as always. But Moses Keegan is kind of a guy where you could see the Patriots easily falling in love with him and taking him day 2 if they don't go linebacker round 1.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've got something brewing in the pipeline that'll come out in the next couple of weeks. But I think the Patriots kind of have to get back to their old way of doing things where they develop a player behind their stars. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got Devin McCourty and you've got Stephon Gilmore and Dante Hightower on that defense. Get somebody that fits a similar role, that can play a similar role, and let them learn for a year or two. Right. You see it like they've done it before, and it's worked so well. Just if the linebacker position, they went from Bruschi to Mayo. They had a year overlap. They went from Mayo to Hightower 3 years overlap. You know what I'm saying? Like, let them learn behind and take over, kind of. And I think Moses might be a good player to do that. Who better to learn from to play that role than Dante Hightower?
Right. So Hightower is arguably, he was one of Nick Saban's favorite guys coming out. He's one of the better Patriots of the Belichick era. There's no one better.
Yeah. So, and then just to kind of jump off of that, another guy who I think fits that role perfectly is Chaz Surratt. He's played linebacker for 2 years, and he's won ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and had 9 or however many sacks last. What's it, 6.5, 5.5?
Yeah. 6 exactly.
Yeah, super versatile, and he's still learning how to play the position, but kind of, I think you could throw him in at any spot on the defense and he'd be good at it. He's just an athlete. He's a football player, so he's one of those guys where he needs time to learn. That's why he's not a first-round pick, because if he wasn't a former quarterback, if he hadn't just transferred, he'd be a first-round pick. So he's another guy. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Cameron McGrone.
Right above McGrone. Let's get it there.
He is a stupid athlete, unbelievable athlete. He's another guy who's been a product of that Michigan defense to where they I don't know why he didn't play that much, but he should have played every single snap. He was kind of forced into playing as a redshirt sophomore. I think a couple guys went down. He ended up popping in, and they couldn't take him off the field. One of those, he forced his way onto the field, and he decided to come out, and I think it's because of the Michigan situation where they don't know how to use their defensive players. They haven't since Harbaugh has gotten there.
Harbaugh's been a mess.
Yes, like Kwity Paye should have been able to come out last year with the kind of player that he is, but these guys are having to stay an extra couple of years, and it's not a good look for them. But McGrone, great athlete. I think he fits the mold of the new age linebacker that can play all 3 levels. He can play the run, play the pass. He can rush the passer. And he needs a little bit of seasoning. He needs to learn behind somebody, like I said. But that's kind of all those second tier guys. They all need to do that, and that's perfect for the Patriots.
Right. And big facts just popped in here at the end. Same with Uchi at Michigan. He didn't play as much as he should. Exactly. I mean,
that's big facts.
That's just their thing. They rotate their defensive players, but they don't realize the good ones that they have that need to play a lot.
Yep. The last player they did was Winovich. The last guy who got to play every snap was Winovich. So.
Right. So, but that'll do it for us tonight. We appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll be back next week. It'll probably be the same format, 1-round mock draft with trades. I think we're going to highlight edges. That could subject change to hold us to it, but I think that's slowly doing the clubhouse right now. In honor of the mixtape hoodie, rest in peace. I'm going to shout out Car Care's Fun for Flint and Little Miss Flint. If you guys aren't familiar, go check them out. Help out Flint with their water crisis that's been going on for far too long. It was the best thing that mixtape provided to us every twice a week. Rest in peace. But yeah, that'll do us. We'll be back next Wednesday at 6 p.m. And thanks for hanging out. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, guys.